Oh, thank you. Thank you. So we have confirmed all 5 presentations. I hope that all the presenters are here. I'm trying to also go through the list of participants to check. Julie, can you please also?
Right now we have 33 participants.
Yeah, I see Ignacio here, Isabelle is here, Sören is here.
Yep.
Ina, I don't see Ina.
Allow me to inform Federico about that. Ina, okay.
And I don't see Przemek.
I'm here. Good morning.
Oh, you're here. Morning. Okay, great. So until we wait for Ina, let me do just a brief introduction. The session on the task force actually on community engagement was somehow one of the most popular topics this EOS symposium. So hence a lot of breakout groups dedicated to this. Actually, out of the 4 breakout rooms, the first one is dedicated to 2 of the task forces and the last 3 are dedicated to the community engagement. So it just stresses out how important this is and how important the work of this task force will be for the EOSC Association. As for this session, I would like, since there is quite a lot of presentation and a very short time, but I would also like to have at least 15 minutes at the end for the discussion, for a short panel, and to somehow try to collect oral messages to be conveyed to the panel when we get back. I would please ask all of you to try to keep your presentations in your time frame of 5 minutes. Use the chat to ask questions. We will address the questions again at the Q&A at the end, depending on the time. To avoid long announcements, I will announce all the presenters and presentations at the beginning of this session, so we can then quickly switch between one another. So we'll start with the EOSC-SYNERGY thematic services. Ignacio Blanquer, which is a professor at the University Politecnica Valencia and advisor to the Ministry of Science for the EOSC area, also heavily involved in the EOSC-SYNERGY as a work package leader with strong experience in EU projects, will present the EOSC-SYNERGY thematic services, the contribution to the EOSC ecosystem. Then we'll continue with the EXPAND projects, another one of the 5B projects, and the neutron and synchrotron light source science community by Isabelle Boscaro-Clarke, she's a head of communication at the Diamond Light Source, the UK National Synchrotron Light Source, and she's involved in public relations, science communication, strategic planning, and branding and identity of her institution. Then we'll continue with fostering research engagement by providing open science research knowledge graph by Sören Auer from the TIB Leibniz Information Center for Science and Technology. Sören might say a few words about himself later, because I didn't get any info on him. Then we'll continue with the 3D heritage data interaction and enrichment by Ina Blümel from the German National Library of Science and Technology. Ina is a professor at the University of Applied Science and Arts in Hanover and the co-lead of the Open Science Lab at the TIB Leibniz Information Center. She's a Europeana Tech Steering Group member, advisor to the Wikimedia. She's participated in lots of EU-funded projects and currently coordinates 3 grants at the TIB for Open Science Lab, with focusing on galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. And we'll finally finish this part, the presentation part, with FiglinQ, a platform for enabling data-connected interactive smart manuscript by Przemek, I'm sorry about the pronunciation of the name, Krawczyk from the Amsterdam UMC. He's a principal investigator focusing on preclinical cancer research at the Amsterdam University Medical Center in the Netherlands, and also a leader of the FiglinQ, a new platform for publishing data-connected smart manuscript. So I believe we can start now. So Ignacio, the floor is yours, and Julie, please start the presentations.
Thank you so much, Anastas, for your kind presentation. So what I will present today is the approach that we have been developing the EOSC-SYNERGY project for the adoption of the thematic services. So next slide, please. So basically, in 2 words, the EOSC-SYNERGY is one of these 5B projects that aims to implement or contribute to the implementation of EOSC by promoting high quality services and increasing the adoption of thematic services on a wider range. It's a consortium of 22 partners from 10 countries. So next slide. So the point that I want to concentrate in this presentation today is the virtuous cycle that we have defined for the thematic services. So we identified 10 thematic services from 4 scientific communities, and we we improve them through a cycle that first increases the capacity, performance, reliability, and functionality of those services by adopting services that are validated in the EOSC marketplace, that in the EOSC community, and increasing their capacity of performance. Second point is to increase the quality by having a deep analysis of the quality of the software, the services, and the compliance to the FAIR principles. We increase the quality of these new adoptions. Once that the services have a higher capacity for addressing larger groups and larger problems, we go through in the third step to increase the number of users by dissemination and training, and then we evaluate in the latter step the impact that has been obtained. So next slide, please. So these 10 thematic services, I will not go into detail, but just to mention that they are addressing Earth observation, biomedicine, astrophysical environment, and have connections with ethics like Elixir and Instruct, with global organizations like the ESA, or organizations like the World Meteorological Organization. So next slide. Okay, these 10 thematic services have been analyzed, and then there was refactoring, in modifying the architecture in order to be able to deal with a higher capacity for increasing the number of users. So for that, we analyzed the 4 areas of technical systems that are required, with this the authentication, authorization infrastructure, the way in which the processing is performed, the access to the resources, and the access, of course, of the data and the preservation. For that, we identify a set of technologies that have been added in the frame of the EOSC-SYNERGY project, and I am reflecting with a box those that have been obtained or identified from the EOSC marketplace. So if you want more details about this, you can go to the deliverable that is publicly available in the reference that you have here. So this is the first step, increasing the capacity and increasing the capabilities. So next slide, please. So the second is increasing the quality. For that, we developed in the frame of EOSC-SYNERGY, I have been presented yesterday, if I recall correctly, a quality assurance mechanisms in which we evaluate the quality of the software, the quality of the service, and the compliance to the FAIR principles. We define a set of pipelines that evaluate automatically these 3 levels of characteristic with different metrics. And then we will obtain a badge, a digital badge that evaluates in some way the quality with respect to these 3 criteria, and then it can be used as a sign of quality. So next slide. The third part is, once that we have higher capacity and higher quality, we go through the promotion. For this, we have created a set of demonstration videos, and we are creating training material in our official platform, in which we explain the users the new approaches, the delta in which these services have been improved. So the new way of using those services that probably produce higher capabilities. For understanding the best practice that we have adopted, I put in the slides the links to the video channel in which you have all the videos, and I put in exactly the minute and the video in which you can see how we have integrated the standardized AI, how we improve the processing backend, how we publish the output results in a persistent repository, the PID annotations, on other steps. So you can go directly to the video, to the minute, and get this information. Next slide. And this is all from my presentation. I will be happy to take questions at the end. Thank you, Anastas.
Thank you, Ignacio. Thank you, Ignacio, for keeping up in your time in this short time. Please feel free, participants, to post any questions to the chat. Ignacio can answer you directly at the chat, and we can have the discussion at the end. We will straight going to continue with the expense and the presentation by Isabelle Boscaro-Clarke. Isabella, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. So I represent this morning EXPANS, which is a grant that gathers up about 9 national facilities in the photon and neutron area, together with EGI. And we work in very close collaboration with a sister grant that is called PANOSC, that serves the European Research Institutes. So just for the context there. And what our goal is to make our data fair and ultimately open and become an EOSC service on a number of levels. And this morning, next slide, I will focus on talking about the engagement side with our facility users. That has been one of the elements that we've been performing over the past 12 months or 18 months in total. We have a large and very diverse user community. We gather up about 25,000 active photon facility users coming from 81 different countries and really spanning a huge range of sciences. So very, very diverse, and virtually all fields of research end up actually being represented as part of the research that we do. And an additional 5,000 neutrons users as well. So you have to know who are the facility users. You need to know in order to do the engagement, what do they want to see in terms of open data, what will be meaningful to them as well, if they wanted to look at work of colleagues and so forth. So the next slide, please. We then, as part of the project, expanded the definition of users, not just on facility users, but also instrument scientists, our funding agencies, the publishers that we were talking to. So we broke all of these down into a nice map, as you can see, so that we knew which kind of audience we were dealing with and what work we were doing with each of them. And if I go back, next slide, to the work that we've been performing with the facility users and the instrument scientists at facilities, as well as the data computation scientists, we have been looking at really how do we hook up meaningful data and fair data to publications in particular. So that's one of the many examples of some of the things that we've been looking at. And there we've been trying to map out the roles of the different work packages in that process, and ultimately working very closely with that user community I mentioned. We reached out to 14,000 facility users, as well as staff from instruments at facilities, and asked them what they wanted to kind of see in terms of use cases and what would be meaningful to them. And we rallied up about 50 ambassadors from that. And we've developed, as you can see, this is one of the very first kind of use cases that we put together. We're working towards 15 by the end of this year. And 15 because of the diversity of science really that gets represented. We want to understand locally what each of the science is doing in order to kind of build up that bottom-up service ultimately for EOSC. And I was given 3.5 minutes and I've come to it, so that's my last slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for keeping it with the time. Again, I call all of you to ask your questions in the chat or to ask them at the Q&A session. We'll continuing straight away with fostering research engagement with the open research knowledge graph. Sören, your 5 minutes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Atanas. And next slide. I would like to maybe say, point you a bit how has information flows changed in different domains. So if we look at mail order catalogs, street maps, phone books, encyclopedias, and many other domains, there have been really fundamental changes. And these basically disappeared in the last 10, 20 years. And we have now digital services. And on the next slide, you see some examples like eBay, Amazon, for example, for e-commerce, OpenStreetMaps, Google Maps for navigation systems for navigation, Wikipedia as an encyclopedia, and many more. And I think no one of you would use a PDF scan of a map or a PDF scan of a mail order catalog or a PDF version of an encyclopedia if you need certain information in these domains. Now, next slide. How has it changed in scholarly communication? And on the next slide, you see that in the last 400 years, actually, it hasn't changed much. So maybe you can go forward. Next. So you see, we basically work with the same techniques as in the 17th century. We have static documents. Now we have them as PDFs, and we can send them by email or access them on the internet. But the information is still very unstructured in this text. It's very hard for machines to assist us, and we face huge challenges. And that's the main way how scientific knowledge is conveyed nowadays. Next slide. So some of the problems we face there are, for example, reproducibility crisis. The majority of experiments are hard or not reproducible. We have a huge proliferation of publications. So the publication output doubles within a decade. And that, of course, has also huge challenges or problems for peer review, which doesn't work as much as it worked 20 years ago or 100 years ago when you could read really the scientific canon. And these are some of the foundational pillars of science, which I think don't work nowadays and increasingly deteriorate. So I think we need to do something about them, and especially in open science and in the European Open Science Cloud, we need to address this fundamental challenge. Next slide. How can we do that? So our idea is, next slide, and here's also again an animation. Maybe you can switch forward and one more. Thank you. Our idea is to represent information which is now deeply hidden in these PDF documents in something like a knowledge graph, where we really have identifiers for research problems, for definitions, for research approaches, for methods, also for the different artifacts. In addition to publications, we have data, software, videos, audio, and then, of course, domain-specific concepts like substances, structures, reactions in chemistry, or definitions, theorems, proofs, and methods in mathematics. And our aim is to represent them in such a knowledge graph, and then provide new means for question answering, for exploring this graph. And on the next slides, I have some screenshots how that actually works, so you can try it out. It's already a running service. So what you see here is an overview which is generated from more than 30 studies about the COVID-19 reproductive number. That's one research question which affects us all, which determines how many people need to be immunized, for example, by vaccinations. And there are dozens of studies which we found, but if you want to read them, you have to dig through hundreds of pages of PDFs. Yeah, but the gist of this information is basically here summarized in a table, and that's basically the R0 estimate for a particular study, the confidence interval, when the study was performed, the location. Here you see the first 3 studies were done in China, then in Iran, in Singapore, and the research problem, also methods and approaches can be described. On the next slide, you see how these contributions can be authored and curated in the graph. So basically you have something like a data wiki where you can change this information, add this information. So it's a crowdsourcing or community application where everybody can contribute. We also work on automatic techniques to extract some parts of this information automatically. And on the next slide, you see how the editing works. So everybody can basically log in and then also change values, add values. You're also also not constrained by a rigid ontology, but you can actually, while you are editing, you can develop new properties, new terms, and the ontology underlying this knowledge graph is evolving over time. Next slide. Here you see a graph view of that. So we receive or link it, obtain bibliographic metadata from Crossref. And on the next slide, you see that you can expand the graph and then, for example, look into the contribution. So this graph is on the one hand a machine readable representation, but at the same time also a human readable representation. We can generate overviews. You can ask questions and get answers to that. As people do that, for example, with Amazon Alexa or Google Now, where you can ask questions about the weather, about points of interest, and so on and so forth. Next slide. Yeah, and we can also create visualizations. So this, for example, here is a bar chart visualization. On top, down there is a combo chart, which indicates the confidence interval for these studies. And then you can easily determine that the basic reproduction number, for example, is between 2 and 3 or 3 and 4, and you can get quickly an answer to the question. Yeah, next. And of course, the Open Research Knowledge Graph is an open infrastructure. It's open source, open data. Everybody can contribute. Also, organizations can contribute and have their home. We want to showcase, of course, those who contribute. And I want to invite you to take a look and see how we can get this in the EOSC. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Sören.
You can pick up on the later.
Question. There is one question on the chat from Kurt Baumann. Please pick it up in the chat and try to answer it on the chat.
Yeah, the question is, how do you evaluate the quality of the data if everybody would be able to?
Please use the chat in the interest of time to answer the question, and we can discuss it at the end. So we move on now to the 3D heritage data interaction and enrichment. Ina, your 5 minutes.
Thank you, Anastas. Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here and talk about 3D heritage data interaction and enrichment. So we make up an interdisciplinary team and want to augment the years regarding collaborative annotation, exploiting the combination of crowdsourcing and a bit of machine learning. Here focusing on the complexity of annotating 3D data. Next one, please. So currently we have a huge national grant initiative for research data infrastructures called NFDIs. You might have heard about this already during the symposium. So NFDI for Culture is the only infrastructure project for the humanities. And this started at the end of last year and will continue till 25 with the option of another funding period. So we aim to connect existing research data tools and services and enhance them with functionality derived from community needs. So the program is organized in 6 task areas along the research data lifecycle on the right. The proposed work I'm talking about today is part of the first one, data capture and enrichment. We connect several disciplines such as architecture, art, 3D reconstruction, and the digital 3D models are very heterogeneous in terms of formats and structure, and therefore visualization and enrichment tools are a challenge. Next one, please. State-of-the-art digitization efforts often result in 3D, as you know, and especially those data sets pose a serious problem for renderers in terms of geometric complexity and memory and bandwidth requirements. We build upon the browser-based open source 3D and multimedia viewer Compact that currently supports smaller mesh data sets. We plan to extend this tool by an alternate rendering backend based on 3D Hop for software. So we will set up a modular reusable toolset for viewing data sets and for user interactions with annotations, connecting Wikibase and following IIIF and web annotation standards. The viewer enables users to explore and work together with objects like images, 3D, or also audiovisual material. So it's similar to virtual research environments, as you know, and here you see 2 annotated models from our For Culture participant, Munich University. They represent also a community of digital reconstruction in architecture, where TIB is also a partner. Next one, please. So as the GLAM sector is very much supported by Wikimedia tools, we seek to bridge these two worlds of scientists and the virtual research environments and the for culture enthusiasts, and complement the media viewers and metadata display in Wikimedia project with additional user annotation. We are connecting a wiki-based instance for linked open data management with the compact viewer for 3D preview annotation, as you've seen. The wiki-based data will also feed into our for culture knowledge graph. So if you are interested in this, we do wiki-based workshops in for culture, and the next one is in July the 7th. Here you see also more contextualization of an object. So this church and general in Wikidata, and a more scientific description in this for culture wiki base, and where specific domain vocabularies can be integrated. So thus might be simplified, as Wikibase does not properly support ontologies. So we want to provide participation opportunities and automated data enrichment for stakeholders. So for TUVI, we analyze and assess user interactions with automatic annotations and feeding back data and analysis to the AI, as well as to image annotation tool developers. Next one, please. The implementation will take place in an iterative process with the community for transparency and optimal usability. And already during our application process, we collected several user stories that can be looked up from our website. So due to time issues, I will not go deep into this, but here's one example from the citizen science. And those citizens and open culture enthusiasts are, as well as scientists, as a user of the research data tools, crucial for judging relevance and applicability of the tools. And also researchers on the topic of machine-assisted annotation and extracting obtained training data to improve their algorithms and the tools, and including raw insights and outcomes from their research in the concepts of large-scale real-world applications beyond limited user test scenarios here. So finally, we are really looking forward starting this into collaborations and forms of feedback and critique and feature suggestions. So thank you.
Thank you, Ina. Thank you for keeping it in the time. And the final presentation is by Przemek Krawczyk from the Amsterdam University Medical, FiglinQ, platform enabling data connected interactive smart manuscript. So Przemek, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you for this great opportunity to present our platform to the open data world. So we are focusing in FiglinQ on this data publishing workflow. And currently what it looks like is that most scientists, they would gather and analyze the data. Then from these data, we would generate charts, graphs or plots, however you want to call them. Then we would write manuscripts where we embed these charts. So these, most often they are simply images, pixel-based objects. And then these manuscripts containing charts and figures would be published. Now, because at this early stage, the connection between the data and the charts is irrevocably broken, what we currently do is we would upload the source data or raw data, or in whatever processing stage, we would upload this to a repository, and in order to try to make it open and fair. So FiglinQ is a platform that really focuses on this process of creating charts, because this is what is a universal medium for scientific communication. And what we try to do is we try to maintain the connection between the data and the charts and the manuscripts forever. So there is no breaking this link between the data and the charts, and everything, as soon as you publish your chart, your data is published together with it. So the charts and the manuscripts and the data becomes one package, and people before us have called this already smart manuscripts. And in the second part of my presentation, I have a little live demo of the platform. So I would just like to give you a tour of the basic features of the platform. Let me minimize this screen. So this is the working area of FiglinQ, where you essentially can see a kind of merge hybrid between Excel, where you can input your data, and here on the bottom you have charts that you can produce using a myriad of different options with different types, over 40 types of charts you can produce with this platform, and mix them and combine them and so on. So one interesting feature of these charts is that they are interactive. So you can always explore the charts in detail. You can zoom in. This is nothing new to most of us. In the last few months, we have many of these dashboards related to COVID results. So we are kind of used to these interactive charts already. Now, when you create these charts in FiglinQ platform, you can also make them public. So this is the same chart made public. This is accessible from the outside world. And again, I can explore the chart. I can check every data point. But what is more interesting is that you can directly access the data that is related or linked to this particular chart. You can also download code to recreate the chart that includes the data. You can have it in multiple formats, JSON, Python, MATLAB, and others. And you can also export charts as an image if you want to use it in your PowerPoint. Again, we have the code that you've seen before, or you can get the data in CSV, Excel, or other formats. Now we have these charts, so they are in electronic charts, interactive charts that are connected to the data. Now, what do we do with these charts? We can first of all store them in the platform. So we get this kind of Google Drive-like environment where you have a list of charts. You can create folders and store these charts. But when these charts are combined into figures, which I will show you in a moment, you can embed them directly into manuscripts. And here I want to show you our first smart manuscript, which was published 2 weeks ago in Nature. I will go straight to the data availability section. And here I have a very short link to our platform. So I will click on this link. And what I will get is all the figures from this publication. There's a lot of figures, about 130 graphs. And in these figures, all the charts again are interactive, again can be explored, and again are connected to the data. So I can directly click this button to download the source data for these charts. I can also edit the plots. So let me do that very quickly. So I can take the chart that was presented, and I can now try to add my own data, or I can reanalyze the data here in this data grid to produce a new chart, or simply I can examine what the scientist has done with statistics and so on. So let me go back to this smart figure. This is so now the platform, because the data is connected to the charts and the charts are embedded through this simple hyperlink in the manuscript, you can always access the charts and the underlying data. And as a final step, which is more of a future story, which I think this is inevitably coming, and we're going there, we created this smart version of this manuscript. So I will click on this link. And now what we have is essentially a copy of this particular manuscript, but the data is embedded now, or the charts and the data are now embedded directly into the text. So if I click on this link, you'll see on the right side, there's a panel which will load the relevant chart, electronic chart. Again, this is all interactive. And again, I can explore the data, download the data, and use it for whatever purpose. And then finally, a very brief overview of the platform. So in its core, it's a data analysis and charting environment, online environment, but it also allows collaboration and sharing. So you can share the charts that you're creating with or figures with your colleagues, collaborators, project team members, and so on. You can create these smart manuscripts. Out of the box, the platform already provides data findability and accessibility. We have this kind of search engine where you can Google-like search for data that are available in the platform. And then in the long term, this is not there yet, and we have some, I think, ideas how to get there. But in the long term, we would, of course, to provide scalable data reuse by adding data interoperability. And I would be happy to answer sorry, to tell you how we plan to do this in the Q&A section. I think this is all for me. Thank you for your attention, and I would be very happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Przemek. Please feel free, everyone, to ask your questions at the chat. We have some time left now at the end, where I would like to ask all the presenters a couple of short questions so we can convey our message to the plenary. First of all, we have seen excellent work here that the EOSC will benefit and the user communities will benefit. It's all about the user engagement. The task force is about the user engagement. So I would really like to hear from each one of you, how do you feel that this task force, or in general the EOSC Association, will help you as providers of interesting services, or as users of these services, to get a better user involvement? Let's start with the ladies. Isabelle.
Thank you. Well, straight away, that's been very useful to listen to my colleagues. In particular, the latest presentation was eye-opening from my perspective in terms of what I can do with my user engagement, because I think one of my first messages has been to actually make contact with you, Przemek, because really that could be a tool that could be very seriously looked at that we weren't aware of. So that's very useful to be able to be connected in that sense. And actually, I then open to him the 30,000 engagement of facilities users that we have on our books. So I think there's definitely a lot of synergies with some of those projects. And along with the first presentation, I think in the first presentation, a lot of the information could or might or may want to be looked at to be embedded as a service, for instance. So I think there's definitely a lot of synergies.
Thank you. Ina, how can this association, what's your thought on how the association can help you, or this task force can help you reach to the users even more?
Yeah, if we have this very wide range, wide community in heritage data and cultural data. So we think it's, and also a lot of data types. So we really would love to take the chance for the connection here to get into more of culture enthusiasts, more users dealing with, scientists dealing with this data, and also providing several snippets. As you see, that's a software. We connect several parts that are existing already and try to build upon this. So it's very good to take those elements and include them to some of our tools, and also the user needs. You have several opportunities there to get us further. So that's all in all, we are very happy to have this opportunity, and also maybe connect to Europeana a bit. But we will see. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Ignacio, what's your thought on this? How can the EOSC Association and the task forces increase user engagement, or help to increase user engagement?
Well, I mean, answering this as being part of the board of directors association, I try to answer as part of the EOSC-SYNERGY, right? So
yes, I think that please put the EOSC-SYNERGY hat.
Okay. So what I see is that I mean, the possibility that the task forces give to the individual projects is to have the alignment and the cross-fertilization in the best practices to getting more visibility for the services that we have to the user. I mean, the main aim that we have had in the EOSC-SYNERGY is to increase the quality capacity for the national services in order to make them more open and to increase the number of users. So we adopt best practices, and all the task forces will help us to align with other best practices, and also it will give us visibility for our services. So I think that the EOSC Association will have a key role on giving visibility to the services that we have.
Thanks a lot, Ignacio. Keep in mind that you will have the chance to ask Ignacio again in the lunch break, I think. Okay, let's move to Sören. Sören.
Yeah, I think one important aspect is also interoperability, that we have single sign-on, for example, that you can seamlessly integrate data between the different services. So that's something which the EOSC should and can and will probably facilitate. What I think is very important there, that it's not a long-winded top-down waterfall model standardization approach, but that it's more focusing on agile and incremental steps towards interoperability, where we step by step develop these kind of interoperability standards and approaches, and also clearly linked with the requirements of the community.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Przemek, your thoughts on how EOS can help end users or the user engagement?
Well, for me, it's really easy. So one level, there's two levels, I think. One level is what I think already achieved. So Isabelle, thank you for this comment. So this is exactly what I was hoping for, that others from the community would be interested in checking out our platform. The level 2 of this is communication through your wide open channels about the services that are available through the multimedia channels and so on. We are super young, we're just a few months old essentially, and still in sort of beta stage. So yeah, we are not really completely advertising or publicizing our presence, but we will in the near future. So we would immensely profit from help of organizations such as yourselves to help us in this, because this is very difficult in digital space now to get the attention of people. We have millisecond attention spans nowadays. It's very difficult. So there I would really appreciate it.
Thank you. And in the interest of time, I wanted to have more questions on this, but in the interest of time, I would like to ask each one of you to try to convey a message to the plenary that we can then, in this short 15 minutes after we finish, try to share with the others present at the symposium. So again, Ina, what would be your message to the plenary when we get back?
Well, I would love to get our small national research data infrastructures to be connected, to be interoperable in this in this bigger European vision, and to get more also our software being connected to other parts, I said, and also this standards that we build upon get implemented in our services, and also we as a collective vision make it also getting this idea out to EOSC. Yeah.
Thank you. Isabelle, what would be your message that you'd like to convey to the plenary about the user engagement?
That I think it needs to be very integrated, and I think that's something that I think in the chat I've just responded to, where as a community, the parent community is very well positioned to really fully represent all the disciplines, or as many disciplines as I could show you earlier. And I think that will be quite pivotal to actually kind of make sure that connections are being made. And as you've seen, having also a bit more time to spend together to actually look at the synergies between the projects and really kind of harness them properly. So I think maybe more opportunities for that kind of kind of synergy mapping would be very good.
Thanks a lot. Przemek, your message.
Yeah, my message will be kind of centered on what we're doing, because this is what I know best. I think it's time to move from images into the new world of digital digital science. It's time to leave behind the old habits that evolved, decades ago, and we now have these wonderful tools, and these electronic charts are among these tools that we can now really use. We have to push publishers, I think, on this a little bit, because they are also stuck a bit in their own ways. So from my perspective, it's time to join the business and the multimedia world and move science truly into the digital worlds. And I think that electronic interactive charts connected to the data is one little brick in this story.
Thank you, Sören.
Yeah, I fully agree. We need to move science to the digital world, and I think we are far away actually from having achieved that. So I think we need to intensify activities related to research data to tackle the problem of this a flood of publications, that we master that, providing better machine assistance. So we need a better knowledge representation of scientific scholarly knowledge, like the one I presented with the Open Research Knowledge Graph, because that's still the main metaphor, basically papers for representing the scholarly discourse. And I think we need this really also agile, entrepreneurial spirit, technology-oriented, of course, user-oriented and technology-oriented. But sometimes I have a bit the impression with these initiatives like EOSC, RDA, there is a lot of top-down, a lot of high-level discussions. And I think we need to more have this entrepreneurial spirit to test new services, increase the user base, link them, create critical mass by connecting them to other services, and thus build a larger user base, and then step by step also integrate them and cater the requirements of these communities, instead of long-winded high-level discussions or year-long standardization efforts. That's, from my perspective, very, very important.
Thank you, Sören, for your message. And finally, Ignacio.
Yes, I mean, agreeing
again,
with all my...
yes, for sure. Not with the directors, Jan. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, agreeing with all my colleagues on what they have said, I want to add another thing, that is, I mean, given this large amount of projects, initiatives, services, the large amount of data that is also being collected, I think that having best practices, policies, and help on metrics on improving quality will be key. I mean, now it's very difficult to get impact because there are many activities. That's a good point. But at the same time, it will be very good if we can agree on ways to measure the quality and guide the users to select and identify which would be the best solutions for their problems.
Thank you for your thoughts. And I will try just to summarize what we discussed here. I believe that the message that we want to send to the association, and especially to the task force of the user engagement, is that we need more awareness. We need more and more exchange of information, especially multidisciplinary within broader communities, to try to share information from one community to another, because this might be like Isabelle said, eye-opening in some cases, that will enable the different communities to use tools produced by other communities that at the beginning might not seem to be so relevant and applicable, to increase the visibility, to increase the quality and the capacity of the national services, so they will be pan-European relevant. This is a very important EOS focus at the end, that EOS will be built of services that are already there or that are produced within different communities, and a lot of these services are national services. It would be excellent that we can increase their visibility, because this will influence the user engagement, and this will also influence maybe the quality of these services. The interoperability is crucial for user engagement, simplifying access through the single sign-ons, integration of services, integration of data and services is also one of the very important thing that should be done in an agile and incremental manner. And of course, lots of communication and dissemination. Researchers need to be aware of what's there or what's available for them to access that in an easy way. So we must make our infrastructures interoperable. We must make our infrastructures visible on a European level. We must integrate. There are large user bases, but they are not maybe integrated like in the case of the expanse that Isabelle mentioned. So we need to get them more integrated, to spend more time, and to somehow discover new possible synergies, even map these synergies if it can help us. And of course, the very important message that we heard today is that we need to move the way we publish, the scientific publishing works now. We have to work with all stakeholders. We have to work with users to get them comfortable using these tools, but we also have to work with the other side, with the publishers, of course, to accept and adopt these tools and to understand that this will be the future of publishing, that we need to have digital science, interactive publishing, we need to have data and knowledge at the same place. We need to have the tools and the means to verify research, to reproduce research. These are the founding principles of fair data. We should intensify activities toward the machine assistance, knowledge representation, and again, hear the data, the voice of the users, and convey the voice of the users toward the EOS Association. There is, I've heard this several times, this perception of the users that the EOSC is too much, from time to time, it looks like too much top-down. So we need to have the voice of the users, and one of these task force is actually a nice forum to convey the messages. And of course, we need to share best practices, policies, measures, user guidance through this process. All we can do to enlarge the user base of the services, because without the users, these services will be just something that will end when the project ends, when the collaboration, or when the funding ends. But if we have a strong pressure from the users, if we have strong user engagement, if we have good services and platforms that are adopted and accepted by the users, then there's future for EOSC. Any comments of yours before we close this session and get back to the main room? Anyone, the floor is yours.
I think you summarized very well, Asanas.
I would maybe add to that this this agility and like digital, for example, using digital tools. Also, like the user perspective is not so easy. For example, I think usually researchers, for example, they will not participate in the EOSC researchers in the field who do chemistry, physics, engineering research. And my impression is we have to really provide added value to them directly, and that's sometimes a bit a gap. We talk about PIDs, about ontologies, but that's not directly providing them an added value. So we have to do this under the hood in a way, and the services have to hide this kind of complexity to really make them provide a direct added value for their daily life. That's, I think, very important.
Thank you, Sören. Thank you. The added value is crucial to the users, and we have to do. I think that is a long way to go until we have the acceptance of all of these tools and services that we would like to see. But it's a road that it has to be followed, and it's no turning back from here. We have to change the way we think, the way we work, and the way we publish at the end as a scientific community, so we can achieve a higher goal. Anyone else would like to comment at the end?
I just would like to add, which is kind of linked but slightly off topic, but it's an important point, is that EOSC needs to kind of look at the future of what services they really want to support, because national facilities, what we find for data heavy management of, for instance, our tomography user community, it becomes very costly and very obviously heavy to manipulate the data. And I think it really needs to get kind of I think a central support for that kind of data heavy services that is beyond what really national facilities can support themselves.
Yes, of course, it's one of the things that I think it's being already tackled by some of the current projects that are currently being funded. Maybe Ignacio, you can tell more on this, but there is work on this, on the providing of services for the specific user communities that are in need, especially data.
Yeah, I think that one of the big one of the big challenges is to show up this added value that can be offered, and because there are many communities that they are doing a very good work in a vertical level with their own users, with their own problem solving, similar problems like on other communities. And I think that what you should do is to try to find the glue, trying to find this experience that are working in some communities in order to make them, to ease the connection at a multi-level and multidisciplinary level, right? But I totally agree that this added value should be something that is our main goal.
Thank you.
2 points to add. What we felt, or what we discovered, that subject scientists tend to do sometimes very complicated, for instance, ontologies and so on, and they also requires software serving this. So I think we also have to think about this more bottom up and also connecting approach for maybe sometimes simplifying this to get a real connection also between all this science world, and then also think beyond this for the ivory tower and the citizen scientists to bridge these two worlds. But I said this already in the talk, and I think it's very, very important also for EOSC to think about this.
Thank you. Thank you, Ina. Thank you all for participating in this session. I call on you to go back to the main plenary session. The room will close in less than 2 minutes, but you can always leave the room and get back to the plenary. I will need a couple of minutes just to sum up the summary for the last 15 minutes. Thanks again to everyone for participating, and see you in the main room.